Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Casual Comic Collector. Today I've got an unwrapping and overview video of the Abe Sapien, The Drowning and Other Stories collected edition. So this book is, I think, the third published in of these collected editions of the Abe Sapien run. I think they've already published two of sort of volume one of The Dark and Terrible and volume two of Dark and Terrible. In any case, I think this actually, the stories within this actually precede those other two volumes, even though this was published third in line. But well, I say this just from having read about this online. I actually haven't read any of the stories, so this whole run is new to me. So I'm just interested to see what it looks like, what it's all about. I've heard the artwork is really good. So I think that's one of the main things for me always is if a book looks nice, book looks good, then I can get into the story eventually. Right. So let's unwrap it and see what it looks like underneath. Right, so that's the front cover. That's the spine. And that's the back. So it is published by Dark Horse and has a cover price of $34.99. Oh, and it collects the Abe Sapien paperbacks, volumes 1, 2, and 9. So let's have a look under the dust jacket. So it's got a just a very simple black cover, just says Abe Sapien on the front, has the title on the side and nothing on the back. Right, so before we go through it, let me just give you a quick look on the spine and the binding. So as I've said before, with pretty much every Dark Horse book, the binding is really good. So it'll be sewn binding in most cases, and to be honest, it's a little bit tighter, the bind, than I've seen with other Dark Horse books. So when you lay it open, there is just a little bit of gutter loss there down the middle, and the pages, the art does go right to the edge of the page. There isn't any border there, so well, there's a little bit there, but on some of the pages there isn't much. So you're missing a little bit there if there's sort of text and art right down to the middle. But it's not too bad. It's also not the thickest book, so you don't get that effect too much. But what it does mean is the tighter binding will mean that the pages at the start will flip over. As you get to the center of the book, they'll obviously hold open, but then towards the end, they'll start flipping back as well. They won't really hold open on their own. But it's good quality, and I like Dark Horse's binding, so yeah, and it holds together nicely. Right, so let's have a look inside. So yeah, like I said, I think this is chronologically, I think the first, or at least the stories in here happen before the other books that were published in the Ape Sapien series, even though they were published in a different order. And I think the basic premise of this book, or at least the stories in this book, I think they're all kind of standalone mini stories, mini adventures, I guess, that Abe Sapien goes on. I think basically, I think the premise is that he goes on a journey through the country, finding people to help and creatures to kill, I suppose. And which means that each of the different adventures he has, like I said, is kind of its standalone story. I've heard some people don't like it that much, in the sense that they don't feel it's a very strong premise of basically just the character walking through and dealing with what comes his way. But, you know, it doesn't, that sort of thing wouldn't necessarily bother me. And like I said, I think one thing most people do agree on is that the artwork, although it looks like there's different collaborators, generally looks really good. So at least on the surface, it's a good looking book. And whilst maybe some of the stories probably aren't of the highest caliber, at least it looks good while you're watching it, and or sorry, while you're reading it. So it's the kind of thing that I would probably overlook if it was a weaker story, as long as I'm enjoying, you know, looking at the artwork. And if anything, it's an interesting look at how the character develops in his own series. And at the end, you get a bit of, a fair amount of extras. You get a bit of sketchbook section. You get some pinups. More sort of character art. More sketch work. And a bit more pinups. And maybe a couple of extra pages of story at the end. Well, that is pretty much it. I mean, I think for me, this is probably a good jumping on point for this series, and see how this goes for me, how it develops. But yeah, I mean, if I enjoy this, I might look to picking up the other books that have already been printed. But that's it for now, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please come back. I've got other videos coming out soon. Please subscribe to the channel. But that's it for now. See you soon.